Ron DeSantis sits down. This is what I imagine. This is how I imagine his thought process works. He sits down and he says, listen, everything that's happening here is wrong. And the thing is, this is not actually a partisan issue. People on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, think what's happening when they see the reality of it, think what's happening is awful. The problem is the mainstream media and big tech and the Democrats lie about it, and they try to obscure it, they try to censor it, they try to stifle it, they try to obfuscate what's actually happening. And so what does Ron DeSantis do? He takes 50 migrants and he says, well, let's send them to the elites. Let's send them to the liberals. Let's send them to the Democrats and see if the Democrats' words match their actions. If what the Democrats claim to feel and want to do with migrants, if they actually do it. He sends them to Martha's Vineyard. And this is where it gets a little bit funny. Within 24 hours, the folks who live in Martha's Vineyard, this is the whitest neighborhood in the country, by the way. It's majority liberal. These are the summer homes of extremely wealthy people, like the Obamas, for example, have a house there. They called in the military and deported these migrants within 24 hours. They declared a humanitarian crisis when 50 migrants who weren't causing any trouble were brought to their little island. A humanitarian crisis. And I guess this is where it gets a little bit less funny, because 50 migrants who took a flight from Florida to Martha's Vineyard is a humanitarian crisis, but when 51 migrants were found dead in the back of a tractor-trailer truck, they died because it was too hot. They'd been abandoned. They were locked in this truck and there was no way out, and they all died. The left didn't care. The mainstream media was silent. But when 50 migrants are flown into Martha's Vineyard, that somehow is a humanitarian crisis. Or the Del Rio Bridge in Florida. Remember when 10,000 Haitian immigrants had to camp out for this just indefinitely under this bridge because they were trafficked? They were promised by the cartels and the coyotes that they would be brought into the United States. And then, of course, they couldn't come in. And they just had to live under this bridge. This wasn't a humanitarian crisis, according to the left. They ignored this. They didn't want you to pay attention to it. But when 50 migrants come to Martha's Vineyard, suddenly that's a humanitarian crisis. So this is the brilliance of what DeSantis did. He finally figured out exactly how to secure the southern border. All we have to do is take the elitists that live in Martha's Vineyard that own these mega million-dollar homes, and we have to send them down to the border. And once they're down there at the border, we have to put them in charge of what to do with the illegals who are crossing the border illegally. And then all of a sudden, all the migrants would be deported within 24 hours. This is the brilliance of what Ron DeSantis did. He actually solved the border crisis just by buying plane tickets for 50 migrants and sending them to Martha's Vineyard. You have to ask, why didn't we think of this before?